The Alpha King believed his heir was born wrong. The healers called it moon-marked. For 4 winters, Prince Vael screamed whenever hands came close. He bit 3 nursemaids, drew blood from 2 guards, and refused to shift human for longer than heartbeats. The court whispered that the curse came from his mother's bloodline, that the late Luna had poisoned her own son from the womb. No one said it loud enough for Alpha King Draven Varkos to hear. Frostpine Dominion didn't forgive weakness. The Northern Territories watched like wolves circling wounded prey. Alliances frayed when an Alpha's heir couldn't be touched, couldn't be trained, couldn't be shown. Draven had crushed 3 border challenges in 2 years, but war was expensive and his son was still feral. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother once said I'd never reach 1,000 subscribers. But I believe stories like this, the quiet ones, the forbidden ones, the ones that burn slowly in the dark, deserve to be heard. Subscribe to Midnight Stories and help turn whispered tales into something that can't be ignored. Comment below what time and where you are watching from now. Let's continue. Iron Vexhale arrived on the coldest night of winter, hollow-cheeked and desperate enough to take work no one else wanted. She'd heard the rumours in the outer villages, cursed heir, brutal king, servants who vanished if they failed. She came anyway. Hunger made risks feel like opportunities. The head housekeeper, Merwin Sile, met her at the servants' entrance with eyes like frozen rivers. You'll tend the West Wing. You'll keep your mouth shut. You'll touch nothing that isn't dirt or linens. She stepped closer, breath fogging between them. Do not touch the heir. If he bites you, you endure. If the Lunar Select wakes, you disappear. Understood? Irene nodded once. She'd survived worse than cold warnings. The first time she saw Prince Vael, he was bleeding. The moon hung low and merciless over the courtyard as Irene crossed toward the West Wing's exit yard, arms full of soiled bedding. She stopped. A small grey wolf pup limped through the snow, one shoulder dark with fresh blood. He moved like something hunted, ears flat, ribs heaving. She knelt slowly, cloak pooling around her knees, and set the linens aside. Easy, she murmured, palm open and low. The pup's lips pulled back, showing milk-white teeth. Behind him, a shadow moved. Alpha King Draven Varkos stood 10 paces back, perfectly still, arms loose at his sides. He didn't speak, didn't step closer. His presence crushed the air like a coming avalanche, immense, silent, inevitable. His eyes tracked every inch between Iron's hand and his son's bloodied fur. Iron felt his wolf before she saw it. The weight of dominance pressed against her spine, but something else flickered beneath it. Restraint. The kind that came from wanting 2 opposite things at once. She didn't look at him. She kept her focus on Vael, watching the way he trembled when her fingers hovered near his left shoulder, but steadied when she touched his flank. Guarding posture. Localized pain. The flinch wasn't random, it spiked in one specific area, sharp and predictable, not a curse. Something real. Iron's breath misted as she shifted closer, fingers brushing matted fur near the wound. Vael yelped and snapped but didn't bite, his pupils blown wide with fear, not fury. She pulled back an inch, mind already cataloguing the pattern. Curses didn't cause localized inflammation. They didn't create predictable trigger points. Whatever was wrong with the prince, it had a source. And someone didn't want it found. The keep breathed silence after dark. Not peace. Control. Servants moved like ghosts through corridors. Voices dropped to nothing when footsteps approached. Iron heard the whispers anyway. They called Prince Vael the Shame. They said his screams kept the Lunar Select awake, that his existence was a stain on Frostpine's reputation. She met Ismira Call the next morning in the Great Hall. The Lunar Select moved like silk over stone, graceful, untouchable, every gesture calculated for an audience. She placed a hand on Draven's arm during court, her concern for poor Vael performed with flawless sympathy. But when she passed Iron in the corridor afterward, Her eyes were winter itself. "You're the new one." Not a question. Ismira's gaze travelled over Iron's worn cloak and calloused hands. "I hope you last longer than the others." Iron bowed her head and said nothing. She'd learned long ago that women like Ismira didn't want answers. They wanted submission. The West Wing smelled wrong. Iron noticed it the moment she entered Vial's chambers with fresh linens and water. Untouched food sat congealed on a tray. The water bowl held a stale, filmy surface. The linens reeked of something bitter and medicinal. Sedatives, heavy enough to leave residue. She checked the bandages stacked near the wash basin. Too many. Changed too often for wounds that should have closed weeks ago. Vial lay curled in the corner, grey fur matted, ribs visible. He watched her with exhausted gold eyes. When she moved closer, he growled, but it sounded hollow. Not cruelty. Fear. Pain. The door opened without warning. Draven filled the frame and the air turned to Iron. He said nothing for 3 long breaths, just stared at Iron kneeling 2 feet from his son. His jaw worked once, tension rolled off him in waves. "Do your duty," he said, voice low and lethal. "Do not become attached." He left before she could respond. Iron exhaled slowly and turned back to Vial. "I know," she murmured, settling onto the floor, legs folded beneath her. "Everyone's afraid of you, but you're just tired, aren't you?" She didn't reach for him. She let her hand rest on the stone between them, palm up, fingers loose, waiting. Vial's ears twitched. Minutes passed. Snow fell outside the narrow window. Finally, he shifted forward an inch, then another. His nose brushed her fingertips. Iron stayed perfectly still, heart pounding, and let him decide. Slowly, carefully, she lifted her hand toward his shoulder. He allowed it. Her fingers skimmed his fur, gentle and deliberate, until they neared the matted patch over his left shoulder blade. Vial yelped and jerked back, teeth bared. Iron froze. Heat radiated from the spot, swelling beneath the fur, the faint smell of something sour and wrong. Infection, masked by sedatives strong enough to dull symptoms but never treat the cause. She pulled her hand back, pulse racing. Someone wanted him this way. Night swallowed the keep whole. Snow fell in thick, silent curtains as Iron led Vial into the sheltered courtyard near the wood's edge. She'd waited until the corridors emptied, until even Merwin's sharp eyes turned elsewhere. Vial followed her with hesitant steps, limping but trusting. Draven appeared from the shadows without sound. He didn't speak. Didn't interfere, just stood 10 paces back, arms crossed, jaw tight enough to shatter bone. His wolf prowled beneath his skin, restless and violent. Iron knelt in the snow, cloak pulled tight against the cold, and gestured Vial closer. "Let me see," she whispered. He pressed against her side, trembling. She parted the matted fur over his shoulder blade with careful fingers, exposing inflamed skin, red, swollen, radiating heat. There. A tiny dark point pierced the surface. Not a parasite. Not infection alone. Metal. She leaned closer, breath catching. A faint, bitter scent clung to the wound. Chemical. Wrong. She pressed gently around the edges and felt resistance. Something embedded deep, barbed, designed to dig further with every movement, darkened silver, the kind that poisoned slowly. Her pulse hammered. A foreign object with barbs didn't just hurt. It re-traumatized with every shift, every breath, every moment. Pulling wrong could tear muscle, worsen damage, cause more pain than the original wound. But leaving it would kill him. Iron made her choice. She heated a cloth over the lamp she'd brought, cleaning the area with steady hands. From her apron pocket, she pulled a pair of needle-thin forceps, stolen from the healer's supply room. She steadied her breathing and placed her free hand on Vial's ribs. "I need you to stay very still," she murmured, voice low and calm. "It's going to hurt, but it has to come out." Vial's gold eyes locked on hers. He didn't move. Iron positioned the forceps, grip featherlight, and found the embedded edge. She applied controlled traction. Slow, even pressure, angled to follow the barb's curve. Viel's body went rigid. A whimper built in his throat. "Almost," she breathed. "Almost." The sliver shifted. Blood beaded dark against grey fur. Vial threw his head back and howled, raw and agonized, but Iron held firm. The barbed edge broke free of tissue. She pulled, smooth, careful, and the darkened silver sliver came loose, wet and gleaming in the lamplight. Proof. Behind her, Draven's aura exploded. The air turned to violence. His wolf surged so close to the surface that his eyes flashed molten gold. His breathing turned guttural. Rage poured off him in waves, primal, murderous, barely leashed. "Who?" The word came out more growl than speech. "Who did this?" Iron opened her mouth to answer. Footsteps. Multiple. Moving fast, boots crunching through snow, voices rising, guards. Someone was coming, and the sliver was still in her hand, covered in blood. Ismira materialized from the darkness like a blade unsheathed, guards flanking her, Mare Wynn trailing behind with calculated surprise painted across her face. The Luna Select's eyes went straight to the blood. "What have you done?" Her voice carried, loud, sharp, designed for witnesses. She rushed forward, skirts sweeping snow. She stabbed the air. "Guards, seize her!" "No!" Iron started, but Ismira was already performing horror for the gathering crowd. "An assassination attempt. In our own keep." Ismira placed herself between Iron and Viel, protective and damning all at once. The new maid. How convenient. Draven saw the blood first. It stained Iron's hands, her cloak, the snow beneath Viel's trembling body. His wolf screamed to protect his son. His instinct warred with protocol, with the political reality that infiltrators used trust as weapons, that weakness invited knives in the dark. Iron's fingers loosened in shock. The sliver fell. It hit stone and rolled, a tiny metallic sound lost in sudden chaos. A servant stumbled forward with a tray of glass vials. The crash shattered the night. Guards surged. Boots scraped. Someone's heel caught the sliver and sent it skittering into shadow and snow. Gone. Wait, it was inside him. Iron's voice cracked as she lunged forward, searching the ground. "Look at the wound! Check the infection! There's proof!" "Proof of what?" Ismira's tone was silk over stone. "We see a maid covered in blood, a wounded heir, and now an object conveniently vanishes?" She turned to Draven, expression perfectly crafted. Concern, fear, resolve. "My king, the pattern is clear. A stranger arrives, gains access to the vulnerable heir, and within days he bleeds. The evidence disappears. What else could this be?" Mare Wynn stepped forward. "I warned her not to touch him. She disobeyed. The narrative locked into place like a trap springing shut. New maid, bleeding heir, missing evidence. It fit political logic too perfectly. It was the story that made sense to people who expected betrayal, who survived by assuming the worst. Draven's jaw worked. His eyes met Iron's for one suspended moment, rage and something else flickering in their depths. Regret, doubt, but fear won. "Imprison her," he said, voice empty of everything but command. "Until dawn, for investigation." "No, Viel, show them!" Iron tried to reach the pup, but guards seized her arms. Viel whimpered, pressing against the ground, no longer feral. Just afraid of losing the only person who'd touched him without fear. Iron fought as they dragged her back toward the keep. "Check his shoulder. There's heat, swelling. It's infected because something was embedded." But Ismira was already guiding Draven away, murmuring about security and trust and necessary caution. The crowd dispersed. The snow kept falling, erasing footprints, burying evidence. Draven didn't look back, but his hands curled into fists at his sides, claws threatening to break through skin. The image of Iron's face, desperate, honest, breaking, would burn behind his eyelids until dawn. The most believable story won, and he'd just condemned the wrong person. The cell smelled like rot and old blood. Iron sat against damp stone, wrists raw from iron cuffs, and replayed every moment in her mind. Ismera's arrival had been too perfect, too fast. She'd known exactly where to look, exactly what to say, exactly when the evidence would disappear. She'd orchestrated it. The sliver hadn't fallen by accident. The servant with the tray hadn't stumbled by chance. Ismera had positioned herself between Iron and the proof, had weaponized the chaos, had controlled every witness's line of sight. The Lunar Select had expected the evidence to vanish because she'd designed it that way. And the healer's curse story, convenient, untestable, impossible to disprove. It explained everything while revealing nothing. It kept people from looking for physical causes. It made Viel's suffering seem inevitable instead of intentional. Iron's field medic trainer had drilled one lesson into her until it became instinct. When symptoms mimic a condition too perfectly, when the diagnosis is too convenient, ask who benefits. Who benefited from a cursed, untouchable heir? Someone who wanted the throne weakened, someone who needed Draven distracted, desperate, vulnerable to influence, someone who could position themselves as the solution while being the cause. Ismera. Iron exhaled slowly and forced herself to think past fear. Authority wasn't always right. Power structures protected their own interests. The most trusted voices could be the most dangerous when incentives aligned with deception. She pushed to her feet, chains clinking, and studied the cell. Old construction, crumbling mortar between stones near the floor. She tested the edges with raw fingers, finding gaps where moisture had weakened the bond. She worked the stone loose inch by inch, ignoring the pain in her wrists. The stone shifted, then another. A gap opened, narrow, jagged, barely wide enough. Iron squeezed through, skin scraping, cloak catching. She emerged in a maintenance corridor, dark and forgotten. Somewhere above, she heard distant sounds. Viel's muffled whimper, the clink of glass vials, voices murmuring about sedatives and dosages. They were drugging him again, erasing the evidence of infection, making sure no one checked the wound closely enough to see the truth. Iron moved through shadow, every breath controlled, every step deliberate. The keep was a maze of stone and silence, but she knew how to disappear. She'd survived worse than being hunted. Draven's scent clung to everything, cedar and iron and cold mountain snow. It saturated the corridors, marked the doorways, lingered in the air like a claim she couldn't escape. She hated him for choosing law over instinct, for looking at her with doubt instead of trust, for condemning her when his wolf had known better. She hated herself more for still wanting his protection. For the traitorous flutter in her chest when she remembered his presence behind her in the courtyard. Immense, restrained, dangerous. Iron shoved the feeling down and kept moving. She was alone now, and she had evidence to find. The healer's office sat in the East Tower, 3 floors above the main hall. Iron moved like smoke through empty corridors, avoiding torchlight and guard rotations. The door was locked, but the latch was old. She used a thin piece of metal from her torn sleeve hem and felt the mechanism give. Inside, the room smelled of herbs and parchment and something bitter she couldn't name. Moonlight filtered through a narrow window. She worked fast. The ledgers sat stacked on a heavy desk, years of records bound in cracked leather. Iron opened the most recent volume and scanned the entries by moonlight, her field medic training guiding her eyes to patterns most would miss. Sedative dosing. Irregular. Too high some weeks. Absent others, then spiking again with no medical justification. She flipped back further. The episodes were recorded with suspicious precision, always on days when Draven held court, when alliances were negotiated, when his attention needed to be elsewhere. Treatments listed: calming tinctures, pain suppressants, sleep drafts. Everything designed to soothe symptoms. Nothing that addressed root cause. Inconsistencies screamed from the page, repeated phrases, condition unchanged, curse persists, no improvement noted, copied word for word across months. Convenient gaps where dosages should have been recorded. Timing that aligned too perfectly with political events. This wasn't medicine, It was maintenance. Irene kept searching. Behind the ledgers, she found a wooden case holding old diagnostic tools and parchment sheets. She pulled one free, a charcoal rubbing, the healer's method for capturing bone and tissue density. The kind used before touch became impossible. She held it to the moonlight and her breath caught. The image showed Viel's small frame in profile, ribs and spine traced in black and grey. Near the left shoulder blade, barely visible, a faint, elongated shadow. Foreign matter. Metal. The rubbing was dated 4 months ago, 2 months before Irene had ever set foot in Frostpine. Proof. The sliver had existed long before she arrived. Long before she'd been framed. She folded the parchment carefully and tucked it inside her cloak. Her pulse hammered as she scanned the desk once more. Ismera's scent lingered here, jasmine and cold ambition. Recent. Within hours. Irene froze. Footsteps in the hall. 2 sets. Voices rising. "Can't keep doing this." The healer's voice strained and afraid. "You'll do exactly as I say." Ismera. Cold. Absolute. "The maid is dealt with. Viel will be sedated through the week. You'll report the curse is worsening. Do you understand?" Silence. Then quieter. "And if the Alpha demands a closer examination?" "He won't. He's too afraid of what he'll find." Ismera's tone sharpened. "But if you speak a word of this, if you hesitate, if you falter, I'll make sure your family in the Southern Pax learns what you did to earn your position here." A threat. Leverage. The healer was trapped. The door handle turned. Irene dove behind a cabinet, pressing herself into shadow, the proof burning against her ribs. Draven's private study was locked with 3 deadbolts and warded with his scent, a warning to anyone foolish enough to enter uninvited. Irene picked the locks anyway. She had nothing left to lose. He sat alone in the dark, a single candle burning on the desk before him. Reports and parchments scattered across the surface, years of healer notes, curse assessments, failed treatments. His head was in his hands. He looked like a man drowning. He sensed her the moment she crossed the threshold. His head snapped up, eyes flashing gold, wolf surging to the surface. He was on his feet before she could blink, power flooding the room like a physical force. "You—" Irene threw the charcoal rubbing onto his desk. It landed between them like an accusation. "Your son is not cursed," she said, voice steady despite her racing heart. "He was sabotaged." Draven's rage ignited, immediate, volcanic. The air turned molten. His canines lengthened. "You escape imprisonment to break into my—" "Look at it." She jabbed a finger at the parchment. "That's from 4 months ago, before I arrived. The sliver was already inside him. The infection, the pain, the fear, all of it was manufactured." His eyes dropped to the image. She watched him process it, the shadow near Viel's shoulder, the date, the implications. His jaw worked, the rage shifted, focusing inward. "Who?" The word came out, barely controlled. "Ismera." He moved so fast she barely saw it. His hand slammed the desk, wood cracking. "You accuse the Lunar Select based on ledgers showing sedatives dosed on politically convenient days, based on treatments designed to hide symptoms, not cure them, based on the fact that she knew exactly where to find me tonight, exactly what to say, exactly when evidence would vanish." Irene stepped closer, refusing to back down. "She's been poisoning your son for months, keeping him weak, keeping you distracted." Draven's wolf prowled beneath his skin, deadly and desperate. He stalked toward her, dominance rolling off him in waves. "You broke laws. You fled justice. Why should I believe anything you—" "Because your instinct told you I was telling the truth." Irene held his gaze even as proximity made her pulse spike. "In the courtyard. You knew, your wolf knew, but you chose fear over trust." The words hit like a blade. Draven stopped inches from her, breathing hard, eyes molten. The space between them crackled with danger and something else. Recognition. Want. The knowledge that either could destroy the other. "If you want truth, Iron said quietly. Stop using fear as policy. Stop governing through threats and doubt. Because that's how people like Ismera win. They exploit the gap between what you know and what you're afraid to trust. Silence stretched between them. She could feel his wolf pressing against hers, testing, searching. Finally, Draven exhaled. The rage didn't disappear. It focused. We set a trap, he said. Summon her. Watch her reactions. Force exposure. She'll deny everything. Let her try. His voice dropped, lethal and certain. If you're right. He stepped closer and Iron felt the full weight of what he was. Alpha, king, predator. I will burn the court down to protect you and my heir. It wasn't a promise. It was a vow. They summoned Ismera at dawn, in the great hall with guards positioned at every exit. She entered like silk and winter, composed and elegant, concern already painted across her features. My king, thank the moon. I heard the prisoner escaped. She stopped when she saw Iron standing beside Draven's throne unchained. Her mask slipped for half a heartbeat. Luna select, Ismera call. Draven's voice filled the hall like thunder. You stand accused of sabotaging the heir. Ismera's shock was immediate, flawless. What? This is... She turned to Iron, eyes narrowing. The maid forged records. Don't you see? She's manipulating you, turning you against your own court to save herself. Classic reversal. Deny the accusation. Attack the accuser's credibility. Flip victim and offender. Iron had seen it 100 times. Tell me, Iron said calmly, how did you know the sliver fell in the courtyard? Ismera blinked. I saw the blood. You said the object vanishes before anyone mentioned an object. Iron stepped forward. You knew what I'd found because you knew what was embedded. You arrived at the exact moment the evidence could be destroyed because you planned it. Speculation. The ledgers show sedative spikes on days you attended negotiations. The healer's records use your phrasing, word for word, and the charcoal rubbing proves the sliver existed months before I arrived. Iron held Ismera's gaze. Only the saboteur would know all of that. Draven's command cracked like a whip. Search her quarters. Now. Guards moved. Ismera's composure fractured. You would violate. They returned within minutes, carrying a small velvet case. Inside, darkened silver scraps, identical to the sliver. A vial of pale liquid, toxin, diluted for slow poisoning. Treatment records in Ismera's handwriting, detailing dosage and timing. Proof. Ismera's expression went cold, empty. You've destroyed everything, she said quietly. Then her body erupted. White fur, massive and regal, filled the hall. Ismera's wolf form towered, Luna-bred, built for dominance. She lunged at Draven with killing intent, jaws wide, claws extended. Draven shifted mid-motion, black and immense, a force of nature. They collided with brutal impact. The fight was savage but controlled. No wasted movement, only lethal precision. Ismera aimed for his throat. Draven countered, driving her back. Iron moved fast. She grabbed a torch from the wall and swung low, forcing Ismera to dodge right, exposing her weak flank, the side that favored speed over defense. Now! Draven's jaws closed on Ismera's shoulder, driving her to the stone floor. She snarled, thrashing, but he held. A small grey wolf appeared at the hall's entrance. Vile, limping but steady, his eyes clear for the first time in months. He crossed the floor and pressed against Iron's leg, not feral, not afraid, trusting. Proof of healing. Draven's growl deepened. Ismera shifted back to human form beneath him, breathing hard, blood on her lips. A weakened heir means a replaced throne, she spat. You were distracted, desperate, vulnerable. I would have been Luna within the year. Draven's voice came low and final. You're done. Guards seized her. She didn't resist, just smiled, cold and broken. You chose an Omega Maid over your court's stability. History will remember that. History, Draven said, will forget you existed. They dragged her away. Draven shifted back to human form and lifted Viel gently, cradling his son against his chest. The pup's breathing was even. calm, healing. Draven's eyes found Iron across the hall. Gratitude, regret, something deeper, raw and unguarded. She was the only true thing left in his world. The court assembled in the Great Hall 3 days later. Draven stood before them, not as the distant, fear-driven king they'd known, but as something steadier. The healer confessed publicly, voice shaking, detailing years of coerced complicity. Servants who'd enabled Ismira's access were removed. The truth spread like wildfire through Frostpine. The heir was never cursed. He was sabotaged. Iron was elevated to royal guardian with healer's authority. No longer a maid. No longer invisible. Vial began to heal. The infection cleared within days. He shifted human more often, small, silver-haired with his father's sharp eyes. He slept through the night without screaming. He laughed when Iron read him stories. Trust rebuilt slowly, through consistency and safety, through knowing no one would hurt him while she watched. But Draven couldn't let go of one question. His late Luna's death ruled as fever. Sudden. Convenient. He asked Iron to search the Luna's old chambers, rooms sealed since her passing. She found the letter hidden inside a book of pressed flowers. The handwriting was elegant, but rushed. Draven, I suspect the healers. Vial's pain is not natural. Someone close has access. I tried to speak but was told I was anxious, overwrought. If you read this, I am already gone. Protect our son. Trust no one who benefits from his suffering. Calith. Iron brought it to him at midnight. Draven read it twice, then a third time. His hands shook. He set the letter down carefully and walked to the window, shoulders rigid. She knew, he said, voice hollow. She tried to warn me. I didn't listen. You didn't know? I should have. He turned and the Alpha King was gone, just a man drowning in guilt. I failed her. I failed him. I failed you. Iron crossed the room slowly. You can't undo the past, but you can choose differently now. He looked at her, truly looked. Stay, he said quietly. Not a command, a question. Not as a servant, not as obligation. Stay and help me rebuild this place into something worth protecting. Power shifted. He didn't demand. He asked. Iron could have refused, could have walked away from the king who'd imprisoned her, doubted her, chosen fear over instinct. She chose to stay. I'll stay, she said, but not because you're Alpha, because I choose to. The distance between them dissolved. Draven's hand lifted, hovering near her face, waiting for permission. She leaned into his palm. His thumb brushed her cheek, gentle, reverent. I don't deserve you, he murmured. No, she agreed, but you're going to try. His wolf hummed beneath his skin, steady and sure. Not dominance, partnership. Later, as Iron examined the silver sliver under lamplight one final time, she noticed something she'd missed in the chaos. A symbol etched into the base, tiny, precise, not Frostpine's mark. An outside faction. Ismira hadn't acted alone. Someone beyond the Dominion wanted the heir weak, the Alpha vulnerable, the territory fractured. And they were still out there. If you want more stories like this, dark romance, mystery, and characters who fight for each other, follow for Chapter 2 of Vale's story. Because whoever sent that sliver, they're not done yet. What did you think? Drop a comment and let me know if you saw the twist coming. Your thoughts fuel the next chapter.